there, losers! This is Monokuma. I'm gonna teach you how to play Murder Mystery on the SKG server. I'm here at my old stomping ground at Hope's Peak Academy, but I'm also gonna go to the DR2 and V3 world as well. Just to kind of give you, the full picture. Let's start with probably the most important thing, and that's the rule of red. We play very roleplay heavy games here on the SKG server, so if there's ever a point where you're overwhelmed or you're starting to panic or things are just too intense and you just can't handle it anymore, all you gotta do is just start saying the word red, red, red over and over again. For everyone else, when you hear someone say the word red over and over again, you have to immediately disengage. You have to back away from them and you have to give them space. And you need to call a host, so the host can deal with the situation. With that said, you can't call red to get away from getting killed or punished or something like that. That's considered metagaming, and that's cheating. And we do not let cheaters on the SKG server. Anyway, let's go inside. Show you a bit around the place and teach you how to do some killing. Alright. Let's start with hindrance effects, because there's a bunch of those. Hindrance is anything from knocking someone out to disarming them to tying them up to gagging them. The most popular, though, is knocking someone out. Now, there are some ultimates that can do this automatically, and there are some case-by-case moments in which you don't need an item, but primarily you need some kind of an item. Now, a lot of the worlds just have regular junk about that you can hit people with. Hope's Peak Academy is probably the best with that. Now, the DR2 world, a little different, a little more restrictive on what you have available, and the V3 world has its own special automation, which we'll talk about later in the video. But anyway, regardless, if you're going to knock someone out in any world other than the V3 world, pick up your hindrance item, like in this case a plate, and you want to hit the person with it and say you're knocked out. When someone hears the words, you're knocked out, they know they're knocked out, you can't move. The person who did the knocking out has to just put the item down next to them, drop it nearby, there you go, now you know it's been used. The person who's been knocked out is knocked out until either they're healed with something like a med kit or an ultimate or various things that can cure knockout, and you have to stay where you're at for, and this depends on the host, either until day turns to night, night turns to day, or full day-night cycle. The host will change that depending on the story they're trying to tell. Some hindrance effect items disarm and or bind a person. It really depends on the world and the hosts. For example, in the Hope's Peak world, these handcuffs technically disarm, but I've also seen them used to bind or tie up. It really, again, depends on the host. When you bind, tie up, disarm a person, you just go up to them, touch the item on them and say, you're disarmed. You're bound. You're tied up. Again, the V3 world automates this, but the others don't. A person who is bound obviously can't move or go anywhere. They can be drug around. A person who is disarmed can't hold a weapon, so since I'm disarmed, I can't use a weapon or a knockout or anything right now. This rope, for example, is used to tie up someone. When you tie someone up, you just put the item around them, and you say you're tied up or you're bound. The wording changes depending on the world and the group. A gagging item, which I actually couldn't find any right now. I think in the V3 world, one of them is toilet paper. Anyway, it makes it so a person can't speak. So you just go up to someone, say you're gagged, and they can't talk until the item is taken out of their mouth. No, for some reason I don't understand. I don't think you can ungag yourself, but then again, the host will make the final decision. Food items do something different depending on whether it's the Hope's Peak world, the V3 world, or something else. In the V3 world, it automatically just makes you move faster. However, in the Hope's Peak world, it depends on the item. Here are the 3 food items that are used in the Hope's Peak Academy world. The apple, which is on the right, gives you immunity to the next knockout attack that hits you. The water cup, or coffee as some people call it, allow you to be out at night without receiving a punishment. And the noodle cup, or ramen as some people call it, allow you to be immune to an ultimate's abilities for an entire day. In order to eat an item, call a host and give it to them. I mean, you can roleplay nom 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 nom, but eventually the host has to get it. An important thing to note is that in Hope's Peak, or pretty much any world that's not V3, once an item is consumed, it's out of play for the rest of the chapter. Also, players can generally only eat one food item per day. Now, the most important thing you're going to learn in this video is how to kill, because there's a special way that it's done on the SKG server. In order for a kill to go through, that means that it's actually valid and doesn't get nullified, you're going to have to first follow a few set of rules. Rule number 1, you've got to contact a host ahead of time to set up the kill. This is ultra important. If you just go up to somebody and kill them, no, it didn't happen. It'll get retconned. That can both ruin the flow of the game and potentially damage the story. So either call a host if the world allows for that, or DM a host if the world doesn't and say, I want to set up a kill. You let them know who you want to kill, roughly when you want to do it, roughly where you want to do it, and heck, you can say something like, I'm just going to kill the first person that walks into this place, this room. Or you can say, I specifically want to kill this person that I'm going to be meeting in this place at this time. Be as vague or specific as you want. As long as the host is okay with it, then it's a valid setup. Then the host will turn invisible and will follow you around until you get to the location of the kill. The host has to witness the kill. You can't do it and then notify the host, which is the default rules for this. In the SKG server, the host has to watch the kill, and then the kill is valid. Now, some worlds, like Hope's Peak Academy and V3, automate killing to some extent. Like, for example, with this particular knife, when I stab myself and press the button, holy shit, that hurt. An effect occurs. In fact, in the V3 world, it'll literally stop a person in their tracks. Some of the worlds, like the DR2 world, don't have that. So, regardless of which, when you kill someone, you stab them, shoot them, whatever the item is, and you say you're dead. If the world has a effect on the murder weapon, then you pull the trigger and have the effect happen. Nice little blood splatter. If it doesn't, then you just stab them and leave it there. So, for example, if I wanted to... I'm not going to do this again. I'm not going to stab myself again. But if I was on the DR2 world and I stabbed someone, then I would just leave the knife there. Or maybe you can try to hide it. It depends on what the host allows. Remember, the host will always put roleplay, story, and character above the mechanics. So some hosts will allow you to hide the weapon in the scene. Others will require you to keep the weapon right there in the victim. As with the default rules, when you kill someone, you have to say you're dead, you have to let go of the weapon, and then you have to count to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Not a fast count, not 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Nope, gotta take it nice and slow. It's 5 seconds. And then you can leave. That gives witnesses a chance to come and see you. The host will handle things from there, including body discovery, investigation, and the class trial. It's really important to remember, you gotta let the host know first. You can also use these items to kill someone through strangulation or hanging. It's done pretty much the same way, except the count's longer. If you hang someone, you just put the rope here and you say you're dead, and then you count to 10 as you hang and or strangle them. So 1, 2, 3, I'm not going to go all the way, but you count to 10 seconds. And then you leave them, their body, to be discovered. To poison a food item, call the host and say you want to poison, for example, the ramen cup. You can go ahead and roleplay doing it. A lot of times they'll make you do that. And then you hand the poison to the host. Once the host takes the poison, the item is poisoned. Then you can then put it to the side and let someone find it. You can give it to someone, or if you want to commit suicide, you can eat it yourself. Once you're poisoned, though, the host will tell you that you've been poisoned. You're then in terrible agony and must crawl on the ground for 20 seconds. Within that 20 seconds, if you're not healed or cured using either an item or an ultimate or whatnot, you die. At that point, your body will be discovered and you'll go to class trial. Then there's this item. Don't use it. Just don't. The things I do for you people. Many of the worlds in which Murder Mystery is played will have certain types of healing items, like the med kit in the Hope's Peak world or Mekon syringes in the DR2 world. These things have a variety of effects, such as being able to cure someone from a knockout, cure poison. There's even some items that will allow you to revive a dead player if it's within 10 seconds of them hearing you're dead. Again, this is a case-by-case basis, and the host will let you know what medical items can and cannot use. Also, as a general rule of thumb, medical-based ultimates, like the Ultimate Nurse, get a little bit more leeway with what these kits can do. Wait, did I say that you get a little bit more leeway from the host depending on your ultimate? Absolutely. You see, on the SKG server, roleplay trumps mechanics. So there may be times in which a ultimate is allowed to do something that circumvents or extends or sometimes even breaks the rules a little bit, just depending on the type of ultimate they are or the situation that they're currently in. The host will always try to take fairness into account, but there are times that the rules may not be as they are listed on paper in order to make the story as good as possible. Finally, let's talk about trial etiquette, because when it comes down to it, the class trial is the main action of the murder mystery games. Now, each trial room is going to be a little different in each world. Some will have certain buttons and others will not. For example, the Hope's Peak world has Talk, Counter, Consent, and Ultimate. The DR2 world only has 2 buttons, Consent and Counter, while the V3 world has Consent, Argue, and Counter, which initiates a cross swords. It's going to be different depending upon each world. However, as a norm, most places will have a blue button and a red button, and those can often be used in the SKG server to also notify certain types of votes. Let's go through things one at a time. For example, in the Hope's Peak world, the talk button initiates, I'm talking, I want to talk, I'm in the talk queue, I'm now going to argue. Meanwhile, the consent button says, I agree with what's being said right now. So you don't have to say I agree and take time away. You just are consenting. Countering means I disagree and I want to argue this point. And this is generally where you're going to wait a second or two and then say, no, that's not right because X, Y, and Z. And then, of course, with this particular world, hitting that button tells the host you want to use your ultimate, a trial ultimate, for example. Now let's talk about the etiquette behind trials. We at the SKG server do not want everyone shouting over each other, but we understand that debate is important for a class trial to work properly. So, the best thing to do is to keep an eye on who's talking and then make your point as soon as you can. Some people will hit the consent button, some people will hit the counter button, some people will hit the talk button, some people will raise their hands. However, if you monopolize the time in the class trial, you're going to start looking really suspicious. And if you're not suspicious, people are going to say, well, I don't really want to roleplay with that person. See, in the end, the better the decorum of the trial, the more exciting it'll be, the more that will happen, the more truth and lies will come out, and the more fun everyone will have. We here on the SKG server have spent a lot of time developing good class decorum, so just watch as the more seasoned players play, and you'll know exactly how you should and shouldn't act. Simple enough. Okay, so eventually someone's going to die. That's just how these class trials work. When a person has been either voted out as a black and is about to be executed or is chosen as a random execution, it is policy within the SKG server when that person hits the center or wherever it is that they're going to be when the execution begins to give them a few seconds to say something. We've had games in the past where blackens have tried to give impassioned speeches and people around them have gone, no, you're wrong, or shut up, or whatever, and it's really just rude. A player is about to be removed from the game. Permanently. The least you can do is give them a minute to just talk. Maybe they got something they gotta say that's relevant to their character. Maybe they might give lore information. Or maybe they just want to give a chance to vent as to why they committed the murder. Regardless of which, give them a minute. If they start to go on too long, don't worry, the host will say something. In the end, you're going to get to decide whether or not the person who is about to die remembers you as someone who gave them a chance to say their goodbyes, or as a jerk who just tried to talk over them. Who are you gonna be? Okay, the DR2 world is a lot rougher in terms of what does and does not work automatically. There's not really a lot of the automation that exists in either the Hope's Peak or the V3 world. They still have items like this one that could technically be used to knock someone out. It's a blunt item. There are killing items that can be used to kill someone, including the Yakuza's gun. But in the end, a lot of it's going to come down to theater of the mind and you making sure to follow the knockout and you're dead rules. For example, Chiaki has a game system here that can be used as a knockout item. And perhaps, under certain circumstances, if the host allows it, it can be used as a bludgeoning item to beat someone to death. Again, roleplay trumps mechanics. Pekko's dorm here has a wooden sword. This has been used to kill someone before. Again, the host will decide. Roleplay and character trumps mechanics. And this dude has a gun. I don't see how this can be confused as to what it does. Because we don't have a medkit in the DR2 world, Mekon syringes are often used as both medicine and sometimes poison. And we haven't really had a despair virus yet, but I'm sure sooner or later that's going to happen. Anyway, as always, ring the host, find out what we can do, depend upon your ultimate and the situation. This could be anything from something that helps to something that kills. Remember, in the SKG server, role-playing character trump mechanics. Why did I do that? For reasons that I've yet to understand, this sewer grating is the entrance to the trial room in the DR2 world. So when it's time to go to a class trial, you'll all gather around it and pretend you're in an elevator to have your pre-trial scene roleplay and picture. And then you're gonna go jump into a manhole cover in order to have your trial because that's the universe that we live in. As you can see though, the trial room in the DR2 world is very pretty. It has lots of different backgrounds that it can be. But the podiums only have 2 buttons. Blue, which is for consent, and red, which is for argue.
No, that's wrong!
And every time you hit the red button, you hear Hajime yell, "No, that's wrong." Because the person who developed this world thought that was a good idea, and who are we to argue? Generally speaking, though, if you want to use your ultimate in this world, hit both buttons so that this weird-looking effect starts and it's kind of purpley. Again, we work with what we got. Finally, there is the V3 world by DeBlob, where just about everything is automated, so a lot of the manual stuff we talked about isn't really going to be needed. Here, food, you just put it to your mouth to eat it, it makes you faster. Hindrance items, like knocking people out, will turn yellow, so that you can just conk someone and make stars appear, although it doesn't work on hosts, so that's fun. And killing items will turn red. You can see that, and they'll make blood splatter when you kill someone, and make them stop moving, so it all works. Don't worry, I'll be fine. See? Oh, shit. Both the V3 and the Hope's Peak world have call host buttons. The DR2 world does not. So in both the Hope's Peak world and the V3 world, just click on the button to summon the host. In the DR2 world, you're gonna have to DM them on Discord. I know it can be a bit clunky, but there's a cool workaround. The PA systems in the Hope's Peak and in the V3 world work only one way. But the PA system in DR2's world, when the host uses it, they can hear everything the players say. So let's say, for example, I want to find Hajime. I go into the PA system and I say, out of character, I'm looking for Hajime. Where are you? Hajime's player can then say, I'm at the beach, and I'll be able to hear them. The only problem is I'll be able to hear everyone else. So if the host says, hey, look, this is really important, I'm the host and I'm looking for Hajime, you can kind of be quiet, give them a second to have Hajime say something, and then the host can turn off the PA system. It's kind of clunky, the DR2 world is, but you can still get it all done. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our tutorial on how to play the murder mystery games in the SKG server. As you can see, it differs enough from the base murder mystery rules in order to prioritize roleplay, character development, and that kind of fun stuff. If you have any questions, be sure to page your murder mystery hosts, that's the MM host role, or during a game, talk to any one of the hosts, and they'll be sure to answer your questions. I hope to see you at the killing game soon. Bye-bye!